Hey, Sitting Dev here. Today's video, I'm going to show you how you can install Jupyter Classic Notebook. And I'm doing this on Windows, but you should be able to follow this along on Linux, Ubuntu, stuff like that. I'm using WSL2, which allows me to use all of the same commands. So the first thing that you want to do is obviously you want to come into your terminal and you're going to be using pip. So obviously make sure that you've got pip up to date and everything first. So once you've done that, pip install notebook, and that's all you've got to do for Jupyter Classic. So you can see I've already got that installed because it's saying requirement is already satisfied. So I'll just clear that out, and for now I'm going to make a directory and I'm going to call it Jupyter. Now let's change into that directory as well. So now we've done this, what I'm going to show you is how to make a virtual environment. So the way that we would do that, we can actually do that with an inbuilt one in Python. So if you're using Python 3.8.5 or anything like that, like I am, you'll be able to follow this exactly. And I believe that that was also available in earlier versions as well. So the way to do this is Python -m venv, which is telling it to make a virtual environment, and then we're going to name it virtual. So you can see that's done that now. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to change into that directory just to activate it. So we're going to say source virtual /bin /activate. And you can see now on the left hand side there, it's showing that we're inside of the virtual environment called virtual. So the way to deactivate that, if you want to come out of that virtual environment, is to actually just type deactivate. So we can re-enable that and carry on as we were. So the next thing that you're going to want to do is some extra steps. Before we go ahead and actually launch Jupyter Notebook, there's some other things that I think that you should do. So the first one would be to install something called ipykernel. So pip install ipykernel, and this is going to be installed in this virtual environment in particular rather than system-wide, because we're in that virtual environment right now. So you can see it's just downloading that, and once that's done, we can then run this next command, which is going to link our virtual environment to a kernel inside of Jupyter Notebook. So if you've used Jupyter before, you'll know that you have different kernels. The one that's usually there is Python 3 or whatever version it is that you're using. That's the one that will be in there by default. But we actually want to create a kernel which is, both Python 3.8 and also tied to this virtual environment, so it can use any packages that are installed within it without having any problems later on. So the way to do that is as follows. You do Python -m, then ipykernel, that's what we just installed, which allows us to do this, install --user, and that is --user, not your username, then --name, and we're going to set that equal to the virtual environment that we just created, which I named virtual. So that is now done, and what you're going to do now is you're going to run Jupyter Notebook, and that should launch it with access to this virtual environment. Because I'm using WSL2, you're actually going to find that I'm going to get an error when I run this. So it's not, this error is basically saying that it can't just launch this server for me, and I'm going to have to paste it into my browser. Whereas if you're using Ubuntu or something like that, it should just launch Jupyter Notebook straight away in your browser for you. So that's what this error is going to be. So now all I need to do is just paste that into the browser. So I'm going to paste that into Google Chrome. So let me just copy this link. Then I've pasted it into Google Chrome, and basically you just open up whatever one you want to run. Let me just shut this one down so I can show you properly. Let's delete that. Now this is our virtual environment folder that we've set up already. Then when you click new, these are your kernels here. So you can see you've got your Python 3 kernel, and you've also got your virtual environment kernel, which we just set up with ipykernel and linked to Jupyter Notebook. So all you have to do is use that one, and then you're up and running. So that's all that you need to do. So just to summarize those steps again, you need to install Jupyter Notebook Classic with pip. Once you've done that, create your folder, create your virtual environment. Once you've created your virtual environment, install ipykernel, and once you've got that installed, you can then launch Jupyter Notebook and set up a new notebook with that kernel. So that's it for this video. If you enjoyed it, give it a thumbs up. If you've got any questions, leave them in the comments. Thank you.